just let all of my panelists introduce themselves. Say hi, everybody.
I'm John. I'm the CEO of SafeMoon.
I'm James. I'm the CEO of the Jasco Group.
I'm Joe. I'm president of Ironlight Labs.
And we're talking about venture philanthropy today. So James and I were chatting inside. I'd love for you to kind of talk about the different players in this space.
Sure. I think of them in pretty much four large categories. The government is one category, and that's at the federal, state, and local level. And so the government actually engages in venture philanthropy. The second would be corporations. So it can be large banks, it can be Google, it can be any large corporation. The third bucket, I would say, would be nonprofits like Ironlight. And then the fourth and last bucket, I would say, would be angel investors, very wealthy individuals. And each of those four players, you can be in more than one bucket. So there are some corporations that have nonprofit wings. There are some wealthy individuals that not only give on their own behalf, but they also run corporations. And so there's a bit of fluidity among all of the different players. And they tend to, once you've got those four players, they tend to break out into two subject matters. One is, what do I want my return on? Is it on impact? And so do I want a return on my impact? Or do I want a return on my money, a financial return? And so any of those four categories can go back and forth among the categories, and they can also go back and forth between those two big areas, return on impact, return on finance performance.
Right. And, oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, so you can actually get both of those at the same time. So I think there's like a third category where you can target business models or create a business model where prime example is energy. When you're able to reduce the amount of friction points, you can actually pass those savings onto the customer rather than pass those savings onto your bottom line. So for SafeMoon, that's what we're focusing on, is actually creating efficiency to reduce our overhead so we can pass those savings on to the customers and actually provide, the goal is virtually free, clean energy once the entire ecosystem's up and running.
Right, and all of you are in you're in different spaces here, crypto and nonprofits. Like, how do you, John just kind of talked about this, but how are you achieving and measuring like venture philanthropy and return on impact in your own positions? And Joe, you can.
Yeah, so for a nonprofit, obviously we need to have money first, right? So did your project get funded? That's a market signal. But for us, impact is human capital, I guess you could say. Did we change a law? Did we create awareness, right? Is someone's life marginally better? For us, it's about breaking barriers so that everyone can have like limitless potential and reach their potential. But that's very different than just a financial, hey, did I get a return on my money? It's much more purpose-driven on the nonprofit side.
Anything you wanted to add to that, James?
Sure, I would say John is so correct when he says you can do both. One, I often do philanthropy through education, through storytelling. So we invested in a short film, and notoriously short films don't tend to make a lot of money. You're trying to build awareness, you're trying to get people to be more involved in a social project or social impact. And so we did one on race and micro inequities that African Americans face, and so we thought it would be a return on impact, that we would get the word out, we would support people, and then we turned it into a DEI program, and we sold it to corporations, and I've made more money on that short film from monetizing it that way, and it did both. It gave us financial performance and a financial return as well as social impact, so they can be both.
Yeah, and using a kind of a business model like that where you monetize a situation that you more traditionally wouldn't monetize, it allows you to continue doing exactly that, creating more videos, creating more awareness. The other item, at least for SafeMoon, the way we measure return on impact is, one, does it actually change lives? And two, are we making enough revenue from it that we can continue to build out the system? Now, turbines are easy to calculate. How many turbines have we actually put into the ground? How many more do we have in the wing? And how much energy is it producing? So for us, it's a lot easier to measure that metric. Now, when you start adding in the second, third, and fourth order effects, okay, now providing that clean energy, did it affect someone's life? Did they have clean water? Is the standard of living going up? So you actually have to measure it by both the human aspect and as well as the monetary aspect.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of trying to, you need revenue, right? And balancing those two things, balancing revenue with being impact-minded seems like a really, you don't usually think of those two things together, you know?
Well, I think it comes down to what your motivations are. Is it to do good or is it to make money?
Yeah.
So for SafeMoon, we gain resources so we can do more good. So for us, it's more about the impact side of it and a continuous evolution, because at the end of the day, we're playing an infinite game and not a finite game. And so we define success as a continuous evolution, non-stagnation. As soon as we get stagnant in whether it's integrating our ecosystem into something, whether it's installing more turbines, we can actually measure that stagnation. How many months has it been since we installed another turbine, or how many months has it been since we got another business-to-business partner? So it's an infinite game where you have to continuously evolve and also be able to pivot, because sometimes I'll use wind turbines because it's an easy example. You might not be getting as much wind as you expect. So how do you solve that problem? Well, you can solve it from a technology problem, or you can go back and just reinstall the turbine, put it up higher because maybe there's more wind there. For us, we actually looked into nanotechnology to enhance these turbines because they are small. They're about 98 pounds, roughly. Yeah, but they produce 600 watts. The larger one produces 2,400 watts and weighs about 300 pounds. So for us, it's like, well, how much more juice can we squeeze out of it?
Well, and I would just add to that, to me, SafeMoon is like hopefully the future of what companies look like, because you have this culture shift of you don't have to choose revenue or purpose driven, right? And in fact, I think younger generations are looking to put their dollars in companies that care about human capital, human folks, that human side, not just how much money am I making year over year.
And I think I completely agree. The other thing I would say is when we think about financial return, it can be direct financial return or it can be indirect financial return. So one of the not-profits that I'm really excited about is Entrepreneurs of Tomorrow, and we teach inner-city high school kids. And so we give them through a summer workshop, we teach them how to start their business, and then we give them a grant. And it's not a large grant, like $500 or $1,000 to start their company. And one of our young ladies started with her $500 or $1,000 grant and grossed $100,000 in the business that she started. And so that is not just, we weren't looking for a financial return, but she got the financial return. And that's an indirect return that then goes back into the community.
Well, it also shows success in the program, which allows you to do more of those programs. So it's, while you might not get a financial return on it, you definitely do get benefit from successes.
And on the nonprofit side, you can take that return to your donors and say, hey, this is working. We do that with storytelling, right? So when one of our films changes a law, we can say, let's go change the law in 15 more states.
Yeah, and consumers, I mean, Joe kind of nodded to this, that consumers they're more impact-minded now. Yikes.
We're safe.
They're much more impact-minded now. I mean, is it easier or harder to build a community in this space?
I think it's easier.
Yeah.
I think it's easier because we all start at a great place, which is we want to make a difference. We're in philanthropy. And so we've been doing that for hundreds of years. What's really exciting is now we're marrying it with tech. We're marrying it with entrepreneurship. We're marrying it with, from the government. When I was in the Obama administration, we wanted to do evidence-based grants. So even when we were giving money to cities and states and individuals, we were excited about how do we determine who to give the money to. And the way you do that is to say performance, which again is a venture philanthropy kind of look at it. So I think it excites the next generation, which is really fun and exciting. My generation is happy, but to get younger individuals into philanthropy in a way that they're excited about, I think is just remarkable. So I think it's great to do it now and build community.
And I just add, I think community members are more sophisticated, right? And so they're going to demand more out of that membership. So if they're raising their hand saying, I'm into you, you need to write them back. Yes. It's not just a one-way conversation anymore. It's really a dialogue. And that's, I think, what's exciting.
And SafeMoon does it heavily. You know, I'm personally in our Discord talking to people all the time. Like I might have not ever met these people individually in person, but I've talked to many of them online. You know, they're like, "Oh, hi, I'm Joe." I'm like, "What's your Discord handle?" Okay, we've had many conversations, you know, and we've talked profusely about my hatred of pineapple on pizza. But who? I have no idea who you're talking about. But no, the importance of communicating with your community is it can define whether you're going to be successful in this venture or philanthropy business model or not. Because if you can't tell the narrative or the story, who's going to know about it? Who are you going to inspire to then continue and pass the flag on to keep going and doing this business model to show that it actually works?
Yeah, are SafeMoon investors thinking about this? Are they, you know, when they're giving you money, when they're like buying crypto, are they thinking about social impact?
I would think so, yes. Definitely a lot of them are behind that. But you get with SafeMoon, we have a large dichotomy of different types of people. We have college students, we have board certified physicians, and everyone in between. I have a funny story regarding like New York City Police Department was looking for me, but not to arrest me, but they were SafeMoon holders. And so Scott Paul, who a lot of you know, he went up and they were like, "Oh, where's John at?" And he's like, "What did he do?" He's like, "Oh, we're just looking. We want to say hi." I'm like, "Okay." So I had NYPD looking for me. That's great. But no, it shows the importance of community and actually being able to articulate the vision, because if you articulate vision correctly, they understand what SafeMoon stands for. We want to do good, and we want to change the world in a sustainable fashion.
And I would just add that groups like SafeMoon are now putting, as a college student, I didn't have cryptocurrency, right? And so to accumulate wealth and then be able to use that wealth to give to a nonprofits, which many are accepting cryptocurrency as donations, I think is also changing. You have more skin in the game because you can be philanthropic where you're giving, but also accumulate even more wealth.
And I think talking about community, the other thing that's really exciting is so many of us play on both sides. We are funding, and Iron Light is funding one of our projects, thank you very much, but we're also doing our own programmatic activities. So the JASCO group looks to fund different philanthropic activities, but we also run our own philanthropy where we're asking other people to fund us. And so the community is wonderful that way because a lot of us are on both sides.
I'm ready to wrap it up, but am I missing anything? Do you guys want to plug anything? Like, what's next for all of you?
So SafeMoon's got a bunch of products that we're releasing. Not going to talk about a few of them because we don't want to blow the birthday month surprises. But to speak about donations, SafeMoon Connect will be able to help with that, whether or not you want to take native tokens or have it auto-convert into stablecoin to reduce risk. But SafeMoon Connect is one of the products that is coming out here very shortly. And SafeMoon's just going to keep on trucking.
I would say the JASCO Group is an investment management firm, so we manage money. We also do venture capital and filmmaking. And what I'm so excited about what's coming next is we just launched JASCO Philanthropies, which is going to bring philanthropy across all of those different verticals. So we're really excited about that.
I would just end it with, we train storytellers how to empower folks on the ground who are closest to the problem and have solutions, but maybe need their voice amplified to tell that story. And just being here at South by, I've heard so many great stories that we could make a film on, help amplify, so this is great.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Again, I'm Nicole Cobbler with Axios. We have this local newsletter in Austin. Definitely check it out if it's in your city. But yeah, thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
College students to doctors, to police officers, to very, very large audience. So when you're working on your messaging, and this is something that we've both succeeded at and failed at times, you have to work on your messaging to be able to communicate to everyone simultaneously. And when we're able to communicate with everyone simultaneously, that's when we see the largest amount of success when trying to put a message out. So for us, it was focusing on that. It was also when relationship building, if they don't know who you are, you can't really build a relationship. You can't really make a friendship. So for us, we're one of the crypto companies and tech companies that really mainstreamed what they call doxing within the crypto sphere, because usually projects are very quiet about their identities. For us, we wanted to put our names behind what SafeMoon stands for. And that allows us to communicate more clearly with our community.
Super cool. Hi, guys. Oh, wow, that's so loud. My name is Alexa Curtis. I am the founder of a college summit company and had a show on Radio Disney. But I started as a blogger back in 2011. So I was actually just talking to Sydney this morning about how back when I started, this whole term influencer, Instagram wasn't even really around. So I definitely think in the terms of building a community, really starting small. I think people always go right to be authentic and use your voice, and I think that's great, but I think the bigger question is how do we teach people how to be authentic? I don't think that a lot of people honestly know how to do it, right? Because of social media, everyone wants to kind of be someone else or look like someone else. So certainly failures, so much rejection along the way, especially in entertainment. And then I think the biggest success has been with this college summit program that I started, with the colleges, like you said, with those students, getting in front of them and really being able to see how hard it is now for people to find their identity. That's kind of a huge main focus for us. So yeah, and utilizing social media is obviously great to build community, engage with people. I know crypto is super big on Twitter, so I'm kind of interested in that space, and yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. So when you were building community, when was the first time you realized you had a community, and what did that look like, and was it what you wanted it to look like?
So SafeMoon was organic growth, and in all reality, we grew so fast. I don't actually know how to answer that question. It's just like, here's the family, here's your SafeMoon army. Communicate with them. So that's kind of the inception. Yeah, I've moved really, really quickly. So didn't really have to go through some of those major building steps, but it was the steps that we had to take was, how do you build trust with that community, which was doxing ourselves, learning how to communicate effectively with a wide audience, and listening. Listening, super important. And it's also very beneficial for a business to be able to talk directly to their community, to their users, and hear exactly what kind of features they want. We don't have to hold a focus group and then hope for the best. I can hop in Discord and be like, do you want me to cross the chains? And then if I get a resounding yes, then we cross the chains. It's a very simple process, and it actually cuts down a lot of the costs that go into developing products. Again, to reference my former panel, if we're able to eliminate friction points, we're able to pass those savings on to our users and also onto the project where we're trying to get a return on impact.
Back when I started blogging in 2011, you would have to, does anyone remember blogger.com? This was like so long ago. You would have to like click on the side, and click subscribe. I don't know if anyone knows this. And now there's like Squarespace and WordPress. So that was, you would go on someone else's website and comment, and then they would go back to yours, and you're like, I want to follow you, follow me back, whatever. Now I think it's so much easier because you can build something on Twitter or on TikTok, and you can do and use that same technique, right? Go and comment on someone's post or DM someone, LinkedIn, and message them that way. So I think that's kind of cool with building a community. And I think that's how I did it from the beginning authentically. And now with social media, it's so much easier to just continue to grow it. And, when you get the yeses from people, so when I ask students questions and we send out forms and whatnot, if they say no, like we won't proceed with an idea. But then if a bunch of people say, we want this panel idea or whatnot, we take that pretty seriously and then go from there and send out forms. And I think trying to get as much feedback as possible to continue to build a community is really important.
Yeah. And so, John, I know you use Discord, and obviously, Alexa, you use a plethora of platforms. What platform today do you find is the most effective to reach your audience and community, and also go beyond providing a service, whether that's providing a podcast or providing products?
So you can actually break it down a little bit. So Twitter, if you're trying to put a statement out, use Twitter. If you're actually trying to converse, use Discord. And then you supplement that by using Instagram. You can use the digital medium, so YouTube or a video on Twitter. So you can then supplement each one of those, but Discord's kind of like our main hub because it's a live conversation. Twitter is not really a live conversation. If your internet's slow, you got to keep hitting refresh. So that's better for public statements. YouTube is great, but that's kind of a fire and forget. Even if you have a live stream, the chat's going so fast you can't really converse. And if you're on the live stream, you're not really looking at the chat. You're looking at the cameras. You're working with the crew on the set. But yeah, so Twitter for statements and then Discord for engagement.
That's like a great question. So I agree with everything you say. I also think a lot of times when I'll talk to aspiring entrepreneurs or young college students who want to start a company or have a side hustle, they're always like, okay, I'm on Instagram or TikTok, but it's not working. And I'm like, okay, but I think you need a product, right? Because people will always think I'm going to go right to TikTok and post, or I'm going to go to Instagram. It's too saturated now. Like when I started, this wasn't a thing. So I had so many years to build it. So unless you're going viral, which is -% of people, but even then, it's like, why do you want to go viral, right? Like, what are you trying to promote? So I'm a big fan of having a website. I mean, I'm on all the platforms. I have podcasts and whatnot, but I think something audio-based is great, like a podcast or having a blog is honestly really important because I think then you always have something to sell and fall back on because social media might not always be here. So I don't tell anyone rely only on like posting on one tweet a week, right? That's not going to build what you could build in the way that if you had a website or a product like SafeMoon, obviously, can do.
Yeah, it's playing on the strengths of the platform. So.
And I think one thing that people, there's so many things we were told to do of building platforms and building communities. What's one of the biggest mistakes you've made in your past of trying to engage with that community and build it and build a safe but also exciting community as well? That's hard to, some things are boring. But
as I mentioned before, it's about learning how to communicate effectively to everyone and deliver a message that resonates with each individual person. And so it wouldn't necessarily be, what was the biggest mistake? It's more about, there was an AMA back in April. I think that was probably one of the ones where we did not effectively communicate what we wanted to communicate. And so I had to hop on a live stream after that and clarify the points we wanted to make. But it was a learning experience for us, realizing if you're going to be in a very chaotic environment, either prep the person more beforehand or get them to go into a quiet environment where they can deliver the message that they intended to deliver. So it's about learning how to communicate effectively and using the proper mediums.
I think coming from the influencer, I hate that term, but the influencer social media side of things, I would certainly say, I totally lost my train of thought. Can you ask me the question one more time?
just what are some of the biggest mistakes you've made as you built your community?
Trying to do too many things. I think now with TikTok and Instagram and a website and a podcast, I have struggled watching it grow like this. When I started, none of this, like I said, was a thing. So trying to do all of it, but it's really hard. I mean, it's creating content. People who do that full time, I mean, it's kind of fascinating because it's like slightly exhausting and kind of boring if you do that all day sometimes. So I think probably the biggest mistake was trying to do all of it instead of just really focusing on one thing. So sometimes I remind myself to really go back to the blog because that was like the starting ground, and I think that was what made me successful. So I would certainly say trying to pick one avenue and put a lot of effort into that and see how that grows.
Yeah, and I think for the audience it'd be helpful to know when was your community actually solidified? When did you realize, like a year almost, what year did you see this is a community, this isn't just a bunch of people using one service, one product?
So SafeMoon's only been around 12 months as of this month. Happy birthday, SafeMoon, and happy birthday, SafeMoon Army. So last year.
I've been doing this for about 10 years now, so I think I had like two pivotal moments that I really realized. Probably the first summit that I hosted with Drexel in 2019, and then, but before that it was just years of rejection. So seeing all the students come to that was really interesting. And then probably when I got the yes from Radio Disney, because before that, like I said, I was just doing so many different things. And then that was like the one where I was like, okay, if someone at that caliber believes in me at Disney, then I think that's when I really realized this is a product.
So only a year, but several years as well. How did you keep everyone engaged? Where did you ever feel like you were losing your community, and how did you fix that?
For us, it's not really about losing community. You know, the community evolves. People come and go. But generally speaking, it's just about communicating and continuing. You know, we're playing an infinite game, not a finite game. And so you can't look at it as in, okay, next year we're done. No, we're continuously evolving, and we need to continuously be able to deliver the messaging regarding what we're doing. And we've gone through different evolutions. You know, we used to do, in the early days, it was an AMA 3 times a week on voice chat on Discord. Quickly realized that was absolutely chaotic. So then we went to 2 times a week, but we then did, I think we were using Microsoft, what is it called? Microsoft Teams. There we go. Thank you. Microsoft Teams. And so we do a live stream, but we'd just get the screen of Microsoft Teams and talk there. We did that for a bit. We were doing that 2 to 3 times a week, and then it kind of evolved to twice a month. And now we're doing SafeMoon special events. And so it's being able to evolve your communication style will allow you to continuously engage your community. But also, you can't forget your roots. So for us, I still engage on Twitter, Discord, Reddit, Facebook. Am I missing anything else? No, I think that's about it. So.
That's a really good question too. I have noticed that, and that was kind of why I launched this summit program, is I didn't really always want to be in the front of the camera, because the issue with that is that you have people relying on you to talk and be yourself every day. But like if you deal with depression or anxiety, you don't want to go on Instagram every day, right? So I think that something that I found really interesting is having a product where you don't have to be the face of it, so not a personal brand, and that can kind of roll on its own. So as long as you're putting out consistent stuff to people, and like with me hosting these summits or whatnot, if I have days where I don't want to go on Instagram, like my personal one, people are still following that. But I think that actually is a good point to try and at least be on 2 or 3 of these platforms, TikTok or YouTube, or have a podcast, so that people, if you aren't necessarily on Instagram, they're still being able to go other places and find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, I think also I find, so you were saying before how SafeMoon wants to dox yourselves and be the face and the name behind things. And Alexa, you're obviously, a lot of your work is putting your personality out there. When it comes to owning a community, building that and building those relationships, how do you discern what to include and reveal about yourself? And what do you find, is there anything you wish you never shared with your community?
I'm just myself. There's no like version of me that exists with the community and outside. Like I might not share some personal details about my life, but what you see is what you get with me.
I wish I had started in crypto. This wasn't around really. Well, I guess kind of in 2011. I'd be really rich if I was in it then. But I find it so interesting because it's all anonymous. Like in a sense, a lot of people in crypto are anonymous, so it's opposite of what I've built. But
it's very robotic.
Yeah.
So crypto was very robotic, and there wasn't a human element to it. And so SafeMoon is a human-focused innovation company. So you can't run that the same way you would run, you can't run it as a bot. So you have to run it as a person.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I've put thousands of things over the years I shouldn't have put on the internet, and now I tell kids, like, don't do what I did, use my mistakes. Yeah, but I mean, I think a lot of that is trial and error too. If you are building something, you're gonna, like, you just don't always know. I mean, like I said, I put stuff out there and it wasn't perceived in the way that I thought it through as it would come off. So I think whenever you do post on social media, or now, because it is a company, right? So anything, even if it is my life, or like I go on a bad date or something, like someone at a TV place might look at that and be like, oh my God, this is not appropriate. So I think just trying to be unfiltered, but always having some sense of a filter so that nothing you put out is taken the wrong way.
I would say it's like, decorum, common courtesies. So what you might do at home, whether you slurp your soup or you don't put the dishes away, that's the stuff you don't really share. But this is who I am, this is what I believe in, that's the stuff you do share.
Yeah, and so when it comes to running businesses with communities as the base customers, as the people who are promoting the companies, promoting the brand, using their services, why is having a community so important for your companies? And how do you use that, and whether that's pitching VCs for investments or finding new opportunities? How does that community bring you ahead, and why is it important?
So for SafeMoon, our community is at our core, and also integrated into our development cycle. As I said before, when we were wondering whether or not we should do cross-chain, I'm like, well, I'm just going to ask, do we want to cross the chains? We got a resounding yes. Great. Put it into the development cycle and get it out.
I mean, it's crucial. You can't really get anything or anywhere. I mean, no one's going to give someone, just for a small idea, $1 million, right? They need a product behind it, some type of plan. So I certainly think that building a community and just being really good with networking and outreach is just critical in all of the early phases and even further into it. I mean, I think a lot of successful people become successful because the success is not really what they're looking for. Even they'll become successful and they still want to build something else. So really going back to those roots, and again, trying to look at the first people who followed or wrote emails and whatnot. Those people have followed me from the beginning because of authenticity, right? They like this personality, they like this voice. So as I evolve and change, they kind of grow with me. And I think that's kind of cool about social media too, is there are so many different trends and whatnot, but people just choose what they like. They choose which crypto company they want to invest in or where to put their money. Even as it evolves, they're staying with that one bank, with that one company, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, and one thing I cover a lot is the creator economy, and there's becoming a much more pivot to the community members understanding that they are part of that economy. How have you adjusted to customers and people who follow you to realize that they are part of your company, they're part of your vision, and community kind of becomes blurred in that way?
So you're talking about natural progression or the growth of internal influencers within the company or within the brand?
Yeah, and obviously anyone who follows your company, who uses your services,
Yeah.
That interaction is much more transparent today.
Yeah. There's people who are more vocal than others. So someone who I will never say their name, other people within the SafeMoon army who are a little bit more vocal, whether they put YouTube videos out, whether they are really into hoodies. They're a little bit more vocal and they have more of a defined personality. And then you have other people in the community that hop in and out casually. But it's just like with the family, you get to learn everyone's personality types. Some of them are bigger than others. And then it's learning how to listen to the more quiet people as well as the loud people at the same time. And that's an ever-evolving process as well, because people come and go, people evolve, people leave, and so it's being able to adapt and pivot with the communication style that you're using.
I don't know if you guys ever saw on the news a few months ago, there was like two girls, I'm going to use their names because they were on the news, Brittany Dawn and this Caroline Calloway girl, and they had built these massive platforms, and then the one fitness girl, hundreds of thousands of followers, and she's so hot, and like everyone wants to be her, and people were giving her $100 a month to make these custom fitness plans, and it all like broke on the news that they weren't custom. And I think that was a really interesting thing because it reminded people that as much as she emails you back or she replies to your DM, that's not authenticity, right? That just showed you right there, this is all kind of fake, and that sucks. So something that I've certainly noticed that I do quite often is if someone replies to a story, like if I put up a poll, right? And I think Instagram's really great for that kind of connection. I'll DM someone if they follow me, why did you say this or what interests you about that? And then from there, I'll be like, I launched this other program called Mentor Match. So can I offer you a call with a mentor? And I think that a lot of people are like, wow, like why is this girl replying to that? Just because you have the following doesn't mean that you stop engaging with people all the time. Like, why would I not reply to that? But I certainly wouldn't send out a fake custom fitness plan because people are going to find out. It's the internet. Like, you can't do that stuff.
Yeah, and I think too right now we're seeing a big reimagining of what community means, whether that's talking about metaverse ideas or Web3. How are you preparing to future-proof your communities and have them transition into these new spaces and new concepts of interacting in these internet worlds?
So we started off as Web3, so we're not really transitioning into Web3, but I'm going to go back to it. It's continuous communication with the community and getting their feedback when you release a product. That'll allow that community to evolve not only by themselves, but also with the company and the brand and the vision.
Okay, so I can't really answer that directly because I'm not really in crypto. But that being said, I would certainly say based on how fast these things are moving and how interested people are in NFTs in that space, something I do is certainly on my podcast. Like I'm interested in the crypto space. I don't really understand it. So I want to learn about it. So I take my platforms and I say, okay, I want to learn, which means someone else out there wants to learn about what an NFT is or how to build this kind of a company or what is Web3. So then I'll post a podcast episode with an expert in that space or a video to talk about whatever it is that, especially like in that crypto space, so that people kind of understand and learn that way. So I wouldn't necessarily say like evolving it fully going into like Web3 in my sense, because that doesn't really apply to my company, but talking about it does, because everyone's interested in it.
Yeah. And I think no matter what, when you are the person running a community, building that community, there are fears. What are you afraid of? If you are, or maybe you're not.
I don't let fear go into my decision-making process, so I usually just bury that away and don't let it out. So, hope that answers the question.
My whole thing is being fearless, so I don't really have... Yeah.
Wasn't me.
However, I certainly... I didn't think about this years ago when I was starting, but like this whole cancel culture I think is bullshit, but it does go through my mind. Now I do way more consciously think about what I'm posting because I think it would be really easy to be canceled. So it's a weird thing to think about, but you really just have to think a lot harder about what you post on the internet because of that.
Yeah. And just to wrap it up too, what do you think are the most important lessons of someone who wants to build a community right now? What would be the first step to take be?
Learn how to communicate effectively to a wide audience and learn how to listen to a wide audience.
I think the one piece of advice I would have is to just start small instead of getting frustrated if you post a video or Instagram, whatever, and you don't get a lot of views, it's because you haven't really done the outreach. People don't necessarily just come to you. You really have to seek out a customer and find that market and try things out. So I would certainly say start small. Like when I did the first summit, it was with Drexel, right? I didn't go to Vanderbilt. We got that afterwards. I don't think they would have said yes initially. So certainly starting small like that and then trying to have case studies from everything that you do.
And in my reporting, I always ask this question to anyone I'm interviewing.
Learn how to communicate effectively to a wide audience and learn how to listen to a wide audience.
I think the one piece of advice I would have is to just start small instead of getting frustrated if you post a video or Instagram, whatever, and you don't get a lot of views. It's because you haven't really done the outreach. People don't necessarily just come to you. You really have to seek out a customer and find that market and try things out. So I would certainly say start small. Like when I did the first summit, it was with Drexel, right? I didn't go to Vanderbilt. We got that afterwards. I don't think they would have said yes initially. So certainly starting small like that and then trying to have case studies from everything that you do.
And in my reporting, I always ask this question to anyone I'm interviewing. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to say?
I can talk about community all day long. So, we've got other panels to do, but I'm good on my end.
I think I'm good.
All right. I don't know how to end this officially, but here we go.
You did it. That's how you end it, right there. One more time for our great panel here. Thanks so much, everybody. You guys. Oh, do we have questions? Anyone?
Questions?
Questions, thoughts, ideas, concerns, feedback? Okay, we're running short on time, so that'll be a wrap for this this panel here.
Wants to know how weird Austin really is. I stayed, and my son is in the glamping business, so I stayed outdoors in Wimberley last night. Do you know how cold it was in Wimberley last night? Yeah, my phone wouldn't even charge. It was so cold. The water froze. But it was weird and beautiful. But that's enough about me. I'm going to give you my cred for this panel. I was the original editor of PC Magazine when it was a magazine and it came in your mail. And then I launched a bunch of conferences and events, particularly for you at CES. I launched the Digital Money Conference and worked very hard to make the folks at CES understand the importance of crypto. So really great to be here with John. John Karony is, first of all, an amazing human, and he will tell you about it. But first thing you have to do is give him a round of applause because he was, just this week, right, nominated Utah Business Leader of the Year, right?
Yep.
And Utah is on its way to being Wyoming and Texas in terms of adoption of crypto. That's right. That's exactly right. So, John, for those people, how many people know about SafeMoon? Okay, but let's zero them back to what you envisioned and what you're building, just for people that don't know about SafeMoon.
Well, I can start with the core, which is, SafeMoon's a human-focused innovation company, so ROI, return on impact. So the more impact that we have, the more technology we release, the greater our ecosystem can grow, which then feeds back into the return on impact. So increasing the impact in the world and doing good.
Yep, humans and crypto. Yeah, human impact is a noble cause. So let's start with a little bit about you. How many people know John was actually in the U.S. military?
So I was a nerd. I was an Intel analyst. I got to do some cool things. I was supposed to be a reservist, but most of my time was spent on active duty status. I would probably sum up my career as getting roped into things that I did not intend to get roped into. So hey, go do the school. Okay, now that you know the school, you're going to go do this other thing.
And you were in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah, so I spent 6 months in Afghanistan back in 2019. It was a good experience. Wouldn't do it again, but it was a good experience. Learned a lot and was able to really test my character and my skill set. Took a lot of lessons learned from there on, different aspects of what caused us, like what was the crux of the issue in this arena. So, yeah.
So yeah, and you also got to see how money moved there, and not especially efficiently, I assume.
No, they used cash for the most part, which when you have something that isn't transparent, it can create a lot of issues to the point where, the more corruption that happens, the more conflict that's created, and it's just this ever-ending cycle. The other aspect I learned was kind of like entropy, first, third, fourth order of effects. What happened in Afghanistan would have a ripple effect across the globe. There's an example where they would go and burn a poppy field to get rid of the heroin trade, but then that increases the demand for other narcotics, which then affects what happens at the U.S. border, which then affects legislation in Washington, D.C., which then affects Afghanistan, which then affects shipping lanes. So everything's kind of tied into each other. And so that's one of the things that I identified while I was there, was just the ripple-on and follow-on effects of one single action can create a tidal wave at the other side. So becoming aware of that, and also being able to utilize that, where you can not only monetize your first initial product, but you can also take advantage of the second, third, fourth order of effects on that.
Right. So yeah, and I think we're seeing it in Ukraine right now. The
Yep.
same kind of things, and actually we're seeing crypto playing a major part in what's going on in Ukraine on both sides. One to raise money and one to hide money.
Well, crypto's like the worst place to hide money because it's on a transparent, immutable blockchain. Like, just use cash, but no, don't use crypto for that stuff. It's completely visible.
Yeah, some people do pretty well, but yeah. So anyhow, so Afghanistan, you're in the military, you get trained in special intel and ops.
I was just So my whole job was just to know things, and so I became really good at learning things really quickly and rapidly, which is very beneficial when you're trying to pivot in business or learn a new concept. So it's really helped me learning how to learn and then retain knowledge.
So you also have this incredible sweet spot in your heart for all things Africa. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yeah, I spent most of my younger years, I lived in Kenya and Ethiopia, and then moved back to the States. I actually grew up overseas, so got exposed to a lot of different cultures. But there's a lot of resources, not in terms of natural resources, but knowledge as well. Untapped potential that exists in Africa, where there's a different school of thought or methodology where if you're able to provide access to opportunity in that region, the innovations that can come from there are stuff that we can't even fathom. When you're able to connect communities and connect different minds together, you get a different perspective. And that perspective is value added in the world. And
so do you think it's because, we had a dollar and a very traditional banking system here. It was sort of like we had a landline telephone system. When mobile came in, Africa and the subcontinent were faster to adopt it than we were in many ways. Do you think you're seeing that with crypto also?
Yeah. It's really easy to innovate there because they want the technology, and they understand that why go through all the steps that the West had to go through when they can just skip to 5G or skip to renewable energy.
So tell us about, I know you're working on a project in Africa now.
Yes, yeah. I can't really discuss the details of that right now, but I can say I was there last week.
Things went well?
Things went well. I'll be going back here
This
soon.
is what happens when you talk to a special ops guy. Right?
I was a nerd. I was just a nerd.
So let's talk about what is your definition of venture philanthropy? What does that mean, and how does crypto tie into it?
Well, first off, crypto, you're able to, using blockchain technology, you're able to reduce the friction points in a system. You're able to create an efficiency that you can't really get with the traditional systems in place. For example, when you're doing wire transfers, why does it take 2 days to go through? When in reality, I can just shoot USDT right here on stage to someone on the other side of the planet, and at that point, it's just how fast can the Ethereum blockchain go, or the amount of transactions per second. So when you're able to decrease that wait time, well, now you can actually, those 2 days that were then wasted doing that wire transfer, you can just get straight to work. So because we're able to create efficiency in our systems, we're actually able to get a lot of savings. And rather than, and this is kind of where the venture philanthropy kind of comes in, it's rather than take those savings and increase our profits, we take those savings and we pass that on to our customer. And then we target areas target product lines that increase quality of life in areas that traditionally don't have the same standards that we have here in Austin. So it's targeting those industries within a very efficient ecosystem to create good. Yes, we still have to make money. We still have to bring in revenue so we can continue that innovation. That's where like the venture philanthropy kind of model comes in, where there is going to be an ROI, but because our metric of success is how much impact we have, it's more about the impact than how long it takes for that, for example, that wind turbine to pay itself off.
Right. I know you love wind turbines, renewable energy.
Yes.
So the way that works is the efficiencies that you save with SafeMoon, a portion of that goes towards these.
Well, it reduces our overhead costs to where we can actually implement more. So if, for example, you know, if you have $10 and $5 of that is what it actually costs for the product, rather than take that full other $5 and just pocket that, what we do is we put that back in, and now we're actually spending the full $10 to get 2 products for the price of 1.
And will your community benefit from that as well?
Yes, as the ecosystem grows and as the adoption of SafeMoon grows, the community does benefit.
So let's talk about what SafeMoon has now. There's a token, correct?
Yes, so our first product, our first piece of software was the SafeMoon token. We then released the decentralized exchange, Swap by SafeMoon. And that supports both the Binance Smart Chain and the Ethereum chain. We'll be adding more chains as time goes on. And then we released our wallet. We have over 1 million users between Android and iOS, so we've seen a lot of success with that. And then we have SafeMoon Connect coming out here shortly, but we have a lot of different products, but they all kind of feed into each other into one ecosystem that then ties into some of the stuff we're doing in the infrastructure development space.
So the wallet's here. That's good.
The wallet's here.
That's
yeah,
a
you
good
can
thing.
You can find it on the App Store, Google Play Store. Just search SafeMoon.
And you have a huge community.
We do.
How'd you do that? Come on, give us the give us the secrets of the trade, because they seem to be a very active, vocal community.
Yeah. So they were extremely active to the point where in the beginning we were just trying to get our feet underneath us and figure out what was going on in terms of how do you manage just this massive, very passionate family that we have called, you know, the SafeMoon Army. So in all reality, I don't really remember the first few months. It was a lot of sleep deprivation. But as I said in the previous panel, what we focused on was being able to communicate clear messaging to a wide dichotomy, whether it's a college student or a board-certified physician, being able to say one statement but actually resonate with both demographics.
Yeah, no, that's not, and to keep in touch with them, which you seem to do a really good job of on your community. So now I'm going to have to ask you about the elephant in the room. How many of you have read about SafeMoon lately? You've been in and out of the news a fair amount. There's a class action suit that I doubt you can tell us much about, but I think you can tell us something about, and what it's like to be in charge of a company that's facing some tumult.
Well, so SafeMoon won't comment on an ongoing case. However, that's a business model that we don't support. It's about venture philanthropy, and we're looking forward to clearing things up.
So, and the clearing things up, I'm going to just read my notes, is there were a group of people who accused SafeMoon of false and misleading statements and not having the liquidity behind the currency. Like, are you talking to your community, or are you just hoping they all go away? And I guess the lesson for everybody here is, what's the strategy in a crisis? Because I think you've done kind of well. You had some staff changes as well.
Yeah, my brother went back to college. There's nothing super complicated about that. Somebody asked, well, what's the timing? I'm like, classes start in 2 weeks. He's got to get back, meet up with his friends. You know, he's a younger individual, and he's got 1.5 years left on his degree. So it's just something that he wants to do. He's like, I might as well go do it now. But again, we won't comment on an ongoing case, but SafeMoon will continue mission. We'll continue moving forward because we have a broader and greater goal, which is to do good in the world. And we'll continue to do that.
Okay, trivia question. How did you get SafeMoon as your name? Anybody know how you got SafeMoon as the name?
So it's a play on words. So there's a common phrase used in, I think it started on Reddit. It's called "To the Moon." It was popularized during the whole game stonks meme era. Well, meme era, that was last year. It's been a very, very fast-paced year. But yeah, so it means to the moon. So SafeMoon is safely to the moon. So it's just a nice little metaphor.
So, what other lessons do you have for this audience? I mean, you stood your ground. You're articulate. You have a vision, and you stick to it every day. That's not easy. I can tell for an older person or a younger person to do. How do you compete in a really crowded, quick-moving space?
Well, first off, we're not competing with other people. We're competing with a version of ourselves 10 years from now. Again, this is business is an infinite game and not a finite game. And so it's about continuing the evolution, continuing pushing forward and improving the company. You know, we're not perfect, and we never will be, because perfection is a journey, not a destination. Nice little paradox there. So for us, it's how do we be better tomorrow, the next day, 5 years, 10 years down the line? And so with that North Star that we follow, we put that into our products, we put that into our team, just like when our products evolve and we upgrade, you know, whether it's the new cross-chain swap that we're putting in, the team also has to evolve as well. So people will come and go from SafeMoon over the next 10 years. However, the vision and the mission is what remains.
And so how much hands-on, are you a hands-on kind of guy, and when it comes to just coding all of this, or are your coders somewhere else?
So one of the first things I identified is I wanted to get to close to a 24-hour development cycle as we could. So we actually have developers across the globe, whether in Canada, Southeast Asia, Europe, London, etc. So we have developers across the globe, and same with our team as well. Because crypto is it knows no borders, it's a 24-hour cycle. And so having support for everyone across the different regions of the globe was super critical for us. So the staffing has been very important to us in terms of making sure. And then in terms of developers, I honestly don't have that number off the top of my head, as that's handled by my VP of Ops, but I think we're at 25 to 50. I'd have to double check actual like coders.
And tell us about what you're doing in terms of security. I mean, it clearly, there's, I don't have to tell you how many scams and things there are a day. So how much of an emphasis, like in a pie chart, look at how much you're putting into the security behind your token.
Heavily. We look at that every day. That's why we have the, we've been able to catch scammers and help exchanges stop people from stealing their funds via a blacklist feature, where then they are given the time allotted for them to actually track down who stole those funds. Again, blockchain is transparent and immutable, so you can see exactly where it goes. Eventually it's going to go to an exit point. And so we've been able to focus heavily on helping stop this, because there's a lot of scams going on. There was a quick little, not funny story, satisfying story was, there was a scammer that we caught, stole about $80,000 worth of SafeMoon tokens and other tokens from other people, and we were able to catch him. And then he started reaching out, and he actually sent flowers asking for us to unfreeze it. I'm like, no, that's stolen funds. So, yeah. But security is very, very important to us. We have 3 pillars that we focus on in terms of our product developments: security, accessibility, and quality.
All right, so security we just covered.
Yep.
Quality. Talk to us about what makes something have quality, like in your your definition.
Well, quality is it's perception of the person viewing it. Luckily, we integrate the SafeMoon Army into our development cycle. So when I ask a question of, hey, do we want to cross the chains, I can get a yes or no right then and there rather quickly, which actually reduces our dev time. And because it's something they want, we'll spend the time it takes to make sure it looks nice, it functions properly, and then get the feedback on what we can do to improve it. So that's kind of like the quality process.
So your community is really informing how you iterate whatever you do next.
Yeah, well, it's we can talk directly to the people who use the products, and I mean I use the products as well, but I want to get more opinions, and being able to directly interface there and talk with them and say, hey, they didn't like this feature, or they want an upgraded calculator within the SafeMoon wallet, crossing the chains, etc. We're able to interact directly and then provide them a more quality experience based off of their perception and their opinion versus just ours alone.
And so what does accessibility mean to you? Is that just
Make-
how easy it is to purchase and store and tell me?
Yeah. So those who were involved with SafeMoon in the early days in purchasing and having to grab BNB, swap it to BEP20. It was a very complicated process in the early stages. But one thing we've always been focused on is making crypto accessible for everyone, because it is for everyone. I mean, that's what it's designed for. It's to bridge people and bridge economies together in a borderless fashion. So making it easy to the point where anybody can access it. Somebody who doesn't actually care about crypto, but making it easy to the point where they can pick up their phone, download the app, and then be able to start participating in the Web3 economy.
That's it. Pick up the phone, download the app, exchange some money.
Exchange some money, interact with decentralized applications, collect NFTs, whatever they decide to do, but make it easy for them to participate in this Web3 ecosystem.
So what do you feel is next on your roadmap to, like, I didn't look at this morning whose token is where, but where are you today and where do you want to be as you move forward?
Ideally, I want to, everything that we've talked about, release by the end of this year. So that's the blockchain, SafeMoon Connect, point of sale system, and the other products that we've talked about. So ideally complete all of those so we can start integrating the larger.
So go back to Safe and Connect for a minute.
Yeah.
Tell me about the product.
Yeah, so it's kind of a hub for a lot of the SafeMoon ecosystem. So there's some NFT integrations into there. But the main point of SafeMoon Connect is to actually make it easier for people to use their crypto. So rather than having what you call a public key or a wallet address, those are some very passionate dogs.
I know. Well, we had the baby in the last session. We got the dogs in this one, right?
Yeah.
They love SafeMoon.
I appreciate the feedback. Yeah. Where were we?
We were talking about your new product about...
SafeMoon Connect. Yeah, so it's...
That's what they say.
Yep. They're doing the speech for me right now. So SafeMoon Connect is the hub. It has NFT integration, but it's to make it easier to participate in this Web3 ecosystem. One of the key features is being able to do donations easier. With the point of sale system, it makes it easier for businesses to actually start taking crypto because there's an internal inventory management system and also an invoicing system where, because on blockchain you can actually see the transaction hash or the receipt of sending crypto back and forth. It creates a system where it's interesting. I've worked with businesses and I'm like, hey, will you take crypto? They say things, oh no, it's too difficult, or well, it doesn't integrate with my inventory management system. Name an excuse. And so the point of sale system is to make it to where there's no excuse not to take crypto. You know.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think MasterCard and Coinbase are working on a credit card that you'll be able to use, and I think it's those for this country anyhow. It's the traditional ways of using of creating a transaction.
And speaking of the card, SafeMoon identified that early on, and so we've been working through the, for lack of better terms, the regulatory process in order to release our own card. And so we're right now having a launch goal of Q2 of this year for our own debit card.
So I think this guy smelled the hot dogs is what's happening. But so the last panel talked about the regulators and who they watch, and like, do you get advice from somebody? Are you paying attention to Blockchain Association or somebody in Utah or looking at Wyoming? Who do you look to?
The legal team handles that. So they monitor everything that happens, and then they give me advice based off of that.
So any questions from anybody? But we think we just have a few minutes left. Or any SafeMoon users? Any SafeMoon users there? There you go.
Yep.
Playing to the crowds. And because you know this guy? Because you like the coin?
So one of the challenges that I'm facing, I've worked with personal brands for a lot of founders and CEOs, if you want to call them that, of crypto companies. And a lot of them are having kind of a duality, almost a dichotomy between distancing themselves and being anonymous and being, hey, here I am, I'm a legitimate person. and they're having a real struggle on like that balance because obviously this is crypto and it's market based. Things can go down. There's lots of FUD, right? And a lot of people are kind of weary about being kind of cementing themselves into a certain brand of crypto or some sort of coin or token or technology, right? And then of course you understand what it's like to face FUD, and then you're one executive order away from being criminalized. So like, where do you see
Don't sweat it.
the importance of a personal brand and how to and how you kind of I guess tap dance around the new developments of the new crypto economy?
All right, how do I answer that question? So it is a trade-off. Putting your name behind something takes a lot, and it is a risk. But for me, I believe in what SafeMoon does. I believe in what we do as a company, and I believe in myself as well. And I totally understand the hesitation with like doxing yourself. There is a huge trade-off there, and you do get a lot of flack online. You know, they'll probably likely have to deal with, you know, the unfortunate dark part of it is a lot of cyberbullying that takes place. But you got to have thick skin. You got to let it roll off the shoulder and don't take it personally. And then one thing I always do is I look at what's the positive sentiment behind their complaint. What are they actually trying to get at? And then taking that feedback, whether it's positive or negative, and then using that to help evolve yourself as a character, as a person. Help evolve your character and also you as a person. So it's a tough decision. It's not for everyone. If you know that you're not going to do well with a lot of public exposure, you probably shouldn't go down that path. But also, don't let fear go into your decision-making process. So
and don't you think it's going to play out a lot like the market does? I mean, you will want to diversify. If you're watching the stock market the last couple of days and you're a blue chip holder, you've had a rough ride. So I think you always want to take a portfolio, whatever it is, and diversify it. And I think in the crypto world, that means, you know, having some confidence in the blue chip cryptos that, you know, and then having, I won't call it Las Vegas money, but having a little bit of tolerance for what you can risk.
not financial advice.
And yeah, not financial advice.
Right? I mean, everybody was a crypto pro in December.
Yeah.
And now everybody's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, never financial advice. So for me, I focus on the technology. At least with SafeMoon, it's like focus on your North Star. What is guiding your company, and what's your actual mission? Rather than looking at other factors. You know, if you complete the mission, you'll have success.
I love that it's a mission. I just love that sentiment that it's more than just a purchase.
Yep.
It's really turning into a movement, right? It's like that's what it is. Your message has to be a movement.
Yep.
And go ahead.
So as an entrepreneur, like it's every day you're worrying about like how do you recover from failure. So what is your biggest lesson that you've learned that's going to push SafeMoon forward?
Biggest lesson. Don't be afraid to fail, because you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. I think one of the biggest learning points in terms of communication within with the SafeMoon Army was that famous AMA back in April of last year, where we learned that you have to be able to communicate in a calm and effective manner to a diverse audience. So it would be definitely the communication, and don't be afraid to fail. And again, you can break it down to a deeper level. Don't let fear be in your decision-making process.
And then I guess, how do you go out to your community and tell them why you're different and why venture philanthropy pays a part in it? Like, what's the day-to-day action on that?
So it's a team effort. We have Mr. Adult, who does a lot of the community management. He's also our
Mr. Adult.
Yes. He does a lot of the strategy and marketing and community engagement. So it is definitely a team effort across the entire team in communicating that vision. And from the operations side, it's also executing on what we've stated. And of course, there's always going to be delays in some form or fashion. and you just got to roll with the punches there.
So do you think that, speaking of delays, I know your wallet was delayed. It was in the news.
2 weeks.
It was in the news that it was delayed. And I think at that point, at least according to the press, you said something like, that was news to me. Do you think you've gotten smarter about how to handle all of this, I'm going to call it PR crisis?
Yeah, it just comes down to continuing mission. You can't pay attention to the noise because then you'll get bogged down, and then you won't move forward.
And does it frustrate you that people really 2-week delay is like the post office does that every day, right? I mean, so it must be very frustrating to have that kind of scrutiny all the time.
Well, just like it's a 2-week delay, the internet. How do I put it? If you release a bad product, they'll never forgive you. But if it's delayed a little bit and you release a good product, it's yesterday's news. They move on. So for me, it's if we have a delay, it's for a reason.
That's super smart.
It's if it affects quality, security, or accessibility, and it's a detriment to one of those three, we might have to delay it. However, with the wallet, it was a 2-week delay, and we worked through it. We released the wallet, and now we have over 1 million users across Android and iOS.
So you're going to release the next date of your next product launch, or just tell them, sorry, you'll see it when it gets here?
And that's dates. Okay, so dates are kind of tricky, especially in Web3 and in emerging tech where you're dealing with a lot of unknowns and many, many unpredictable things, even down to sometimes there's just one error that keeps popping up when it comes to some of the other products, not specifically with SafeMoon, but many other companies deal with this, which is like gas calculation error. And so you actually have to just go back and redo the whole little code base for that. But there's just so many unknowns when dealing with emerging tech, and there's no real roadmap or like for a car, it's very simple. It's like 4 wheels and an engine, and then improve upon that. With Web3, the possibilities are endless, and so you pick a direction you go, and you adapt as it comes. So creating a release date and actually predicting that, it takes a little bit. And so for SafeMoon, we've only been around a year, and now we're getting metrics on like team performance, so we can actually start predicting when they'll actually get things done. So hopefully we'll be able to do launch dates. We just did one on the 22nd. Cross-chain swap will be launched.
Brave man, that is right around the corner. So
please don't get mad at me for delay it.
Right. No, that
going out on a limb here.
So, my question just went out of my head. But all right, you talked about gas fees. So the last panel talked about regulation, and do you welcome it? Do you want some regulation in this space?
We live in a land of While people want to live in the metaverse, they physically live in reality, and they usually live in a country with rule of law. And so you have to play by the rules. And for me, it's not whether welcoming or not welcoming it. I just hope they make educated decisions, and they seek to understand before they make decisions. So they actually become subject matter experts, so then they can legislate. And that's why, Josh, my VP, is part of the Utah Blockchain Association, where they are educating legislators within Utah regarding blockchain, cryptocurrency, what it is. It's like you don't go to a police officer in the 10th century and then ask them to write traffic laws on modern-day vehicles. It just doesn't work. So you want to be able to educate them to make the best decisions and represent us properly.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's happening with self-driving vehicles now. There's, we are in Texas, but it is the Wild West, no matter where, no matter where it is. So my last question, Jordan, is that right? Are you? Is it? Yeah. My last question. I was told I had to ask you this, and you guys, we should do it as trivia. But what do you love to eat for breakfast? I got this from Cheryl.
Yeah.
It's like The Secret. Do you want the answer?
Excuse my jet lag. I don't usually eat breakfast, but when I do...
It's got whipped cream on it.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I do eat breakfast, I like whipped cream with a side of waffles.
Right, right.
So
really the whipped cream with a little waffle.
Yeah. It's all about the whipped cream. Yeah.
And I do wish you incredible success in what you're doing in Africa. It's so important. And for those of you who've been following crypto and you watch what happened in Kenya with M-Pesa, I mean, it really changed the graft that was going on in the military. It gave people their fair share of their salary. I mean, it's really an amazing venture philanthropy effort to watch, where you do well by doing good. And you guys watching Ukraine? Are you being asked to do anything, not do anything? Are Ukrainians involved? Like, are they SafeMoon holders? Are Russians SafeMoon holders?
SafeMoon is global. I will say, you know, I really hope Putin puts an end to the hostilities in the Ukraine, and I will stand with anybody who supports an end to hostilities and bringing back peace.
Well said. So with that, I'm going to let Jordan come back and do whatever he does best. Thank you so much for being here, and to the moon.
Safely.